Hello, my friends. In this video, we are going to be talking about digital SAT and specifically poetry questions. For those of you who don't know me, hi, my name is Katya Seberson. I'm the creator of the Seberson method. I'm an SAT tutor and I have been doing this full time for the last 10 years. I have not taken an official digital SAT, so I cannot say that I've scored perfectly, but I have scored perfectly multiple times on a paper SAT, and so did many of my clients. I run a group program, my membership, and I also work with students one-on-one. I only take 10 students at a time for my one-on-one work, so I'm usually booked solid, but feel free to fill out an application to see if any space opens up. And let's get to the video. I know that I'm about to get serious because my hair just went up. So let's seriously talk about poetry. Poetry is still language. Poetry is not a different animal, but it is a compressed language, highly compressed language. So what poets do is when they look at a regular sentence like prose, for example, when they look at a sentence like, I feel a bliss of solitude, the poet would look at the sentence and then remove some of the words that the poet finds extraneous, unnecessary. For example, the author will say, a bliss of solitude, instead of I feel a bliss of solitude. The author removes something that us grammarians find really essential. We find that the sentence cannot stand without the subject and the verb, I feel. And to the poet, those words are extraneous, unnecessary. By removing some of the glue that puts the sentences together, the message behind a poem becomes more cryptic. The message becomes a little bit harder or a lot harder to interpret. So if you are reading a poem and you are confused, it is your responsibility, the responsibility of the reader, to put those words back in. You need to imagine what are some of the words that the author took out, and you need to put them back in. Let me show you an example. So this poem is by Georgia Douglas Johnson. This is an older language, 1922, and it's called The Benediction. If you don't know that benediction is a blessing, it's usually like at the end of the Catholic service, you can guess the meaning by knowing your Latin roots. There's a Latin root bene, benevolent. Bene means well, good. Like benevolent person, that means a well-meaning, good person, generous person. Diction means speaking. So benediction is kind of like a blessing. And now she's saying this blessing towards her son. Go forth, my son. What are we filling in? We're filling in the word you. You go forth, my son. Winged by my heart's desire. So she's giving him a blessing. Go forth, go forward. Winged by my heart's desire. He's being driven, winged, by her heart's desire. Great reaches, great things that you reach for. You know how you have reach schools? Like great goals, yet unknown await for your possession. So this is pretty straightforward. Go forward. You're going to be fueled by my desire. I wish that you go forth with your life, and great things that you don't know yet await you. And she continues on to say, I may not, if I would, retrace the way with you. My pilgrimage is through, but life is calling you. So here she says that I am not going to retrace the way with you. She's not going to follow him. She's not going to go on this journey with him. She's not going to be his constant roommate. She's not going to be his mother, because her pilgrimage is through. When something is through, when someone's marriage is through, when someone's friendship is through, it's over. We are through. We are over. We are done. My pilgrimage. Pilgrimage is her journey. On the SAT, you probably know this, one of the common obstacles to reading comprehension is when we say the same thing using different words. Here, instead of saying the journey, instead of saying life, the author says my pilgrimage. Maybe the narrator's life is coming to an end. Her time to go on adventures is through, it's done. But life is calling you. Here, the pronoun is obviously pointing to her son. So she says, go on, enjoy life. A lot of unpredictable things are ahead of you. I am not going to follow you. I'm not going to retrace the way with you because my journey is over. My pilgrimage is through, but life is calling you. Let's take a look at the question. So here the College Board is asking you, what is the main purpose of the text? Whenever you see these words, main, central, primary, you're always going to go back to this thought. What is something that gets repeated more than once? Because in order for something to be main, primary, or central, in the objective way, on the College Board, everything has to be objective and not subjective. The College Board has to have some kind of evidence to support that this is main and this is not main. This is primary idea and this is a secondary idea. And how can they prove that? They can prove that by how many times the author mentions something. So what is something that gets repeated over and over again? She's talking to her son and she says, hey, you go forth, my son. Great reaches await for your possession. The life is calling you. This is something that gets repeated over and over again. Let's check out our answer choices one by one. To express hope that a child will have the same accomplishment as his parents did. Absolutely not. She says, I'm not going with you. My pilgrimage is through. I'm not going to retrace the way with you. To suggest that raising a child involves many struggles. Absolutely not. Let's take a look at D. To encourage a child to embrace the experiences life will offer. Maybe. To warn a child that he will face many challenges throughout his life. No, she is instead saying, go forth. Great reaches, yet unknown, await for your possession. A lot of the things that will surprise you. And the life is calling you. Go on. And it's a benediction. It's kind of like a blessing. She's saying that as he's leaving her house, probably. Let's take a look at another example. Also, official SAT test 2. Question number 6, section 2. So this is now from another 1920s poem. Now this is by Gwendolyn Bennett. And the title is Street Lamps in Early Spring. It starts with night wears a garment. Night wears a dress. All velvet soft, all violet blue. So the author says that the knight is wearing some kind of a dress, and the dress, or it is, this is what we're filling in order for the sentence to make sense. Knight wears a garment, period. It is all velvet, soft, all violet blue. So either one of those colors or textures. And over her face, who is she here? Over her face. Who is she here? It's the knight. We still have the same character. Now we're referring to the knight as her. Over her face, she draws a veil as shimmering fine as floating dew. Again, it's the veil. The veil is as shimmering fine as floating dew. And here and there, in the black of her hair. Whose hair? The knight's hair. The subtle hands of night. So the hands are in her hair. Move slowly with their gem-starred night. So the hands are moving slowly with a gem-starred night. You see, this is pretty self-explanatory. The College Board is not giving you any advanced poetry. Now, let's take a look at the question. So which choice best describes the overall structure of the text? And instead of thinking about it and pondering about it by yourself first and then looking at the answers, you can just start checking the answers. Okay, it presents alternating descriptions of night in a rural area and in the city. Is that true? Did they talk about like, in the city, it looks like this. In the village, it looks like that. No, they didn't do that. So A is out. B, it sketches an image of nightfall, then an image of a sunrise. Again, is that a yes or a no? They never mentioned a sun going up or going down. No. It makes an extended comparison of night to a human being. An extended comparison of night to a human being. Well, wears a garment, has a face, wears a veil, has hair, has hands that she puts into her gem-starred hair. I can totally see that. It's very similar to a human being. Let's take a look at D. It portrays how night changes from one season of the year to the next. They never mentioned that. They never mentioned years changing. They never mentioned seasons changing. So D's out. You see how C may not be this immediate thing that you think about, but if you go through the answer choices and you eliminate those that are obviously wrong, you're going to arrive at C. This last question comes to us from R-Test. R-Tests are my friends and my colleagues. This is a platform that designs additional, very accurate, very specific practice tests so that you can test your skills of the digital SAT. Right now, we're all having this problem because the College Board only released 4 official digital SAT tests. And if any one of you are serious about your SAT prep, well, 4 tests is simply not enough. And if you wanted to take additional tests, you need to make sure that the practice tests you are taking are actually following the logic of the real digital SAT. So our test is using AI, intelligence, artificial intelligence, but they're also using actual human intelligence of people who used to work for the College Board who currently consult for our tests. Personally, I use our test with all of my clients. And if you wanted to do the same, you can take advantage of an additional discount code that they provided for me, which is Katya, Katya. So when you are purchasing additional practice tests from them, go on and add Katya into your checkout page and enjoy that discount. You're welcome. So this is a poem by William Wordsworth. It's a little bit older. It's 1804. And we know that the poem is called I Wandered Lonely as a Cloud. And we also get a little blurb. The poet is walking beside the field of daffodils. Daffodils are flowers. They look like this. And let's start reading. The waves beside them, pronouns. Pronouns always need to be traced beside daffodils, right? The waves beside daffodils danced. Semicolon. That means that's a separate idea. Then another one. Semicolon and but. Just a side note. Never on the College Board grammar section would a semicolon and a fanboy will be correct. But listen, this is poetry and this is 1804. William Wordsworth is allowed to do whatever he wants. But we are never going to repeat that on the College Board's grammar section. But they, the daffodils, outdid the sparkling waves in glee. Glee is also sparkle, right? It's delight, it's happiness, it's joy. So, but the daffodils, they were doing better than the sparkling waves in glee. So maybe he's comparing the joy that the flowers are bringing him to the joy that the waves, that the water is bringing him. Colon, meaning like, here's what I mean by that. A poet could not but be gay. This has nothing to do with being homosexual, heterosexual. Gay here means happy. Could not but be gay, meaning the only thing that he could be is be happy. To be gay in 1804 mostly meant to be happy. A poet could not but be gay. He could only be happy in such a jocund company. If you don't know what the word jocund means, I have a little trick for you. If I don't know what the word means, I identify the part of speech, which is in this case is an adjective, and in such a some kind of company. I gazed and gazed, but little thought what wealth the show to me had brought. So he was looking at the daffodils, but he didn't even think, but little thought what wealth the show to me had brought. I think here the word order needs to be twisted for us to understand it. I looked and looked, but I couldn't really wrap my brain around about the wealth that the show had brought to me. And by wealth, he means the enjoyment, how much value that this show, and by the show, he's probably talking about the daffodils. He's walking beside a field of daffodils, and he's gazing and gazing, and he's thinking, how much of a wealthy person I have become by being next to the daffodils. For oft, when on my couch I lie, in vacant or in pensive mood. So again, let's switch up the order of the words and let's fill in some of the words that the narrator took out. It will probably go like this. When I often, oft means often, when I often lie on the couch in a vacant or in pensive mood. Pensar in Spanish means to think. Pensive mood means to be pondering about something, like he's reminiscing, he's reflecting, he's in a reflexive mood. They flash. Who are they? The daffodils, exactly. The daffodils flash upon that inward eye. So basically he sees them in his mind's eye, which is the bliss of solitude, which reminds him of the bliss of the solitude. When he's laying around on the couch, being reminiscent and pensive, he sometimes sees the daffodils, the image of the daffodils in his mind's eye, which reminds him of the bliss of solitude. We have one more sentence. And then my heart with pleasure fills and dances with the daffodils. So what do we have here? We have here the guy who says, I was walking beside the daffodils and they were outdoing the waves with joy and delight. A poet can only be happy in such a jocund company. Jocund actually means cheerful and happy, but if you don't know that, the poet can only be happy in such some kind of company. He looked and looked, but little thought what wealth the show to me had brought. He is admiring the amount of wealth, the amount of value that the show has brought to him. This is how I understand these lines. And then the next paragraph says, when I often lie on my couch, the daffodils flash in my inward eye, and I start to think about the bliss of solitude, and then my heart with pleasure fills, and then he feels some kind of a relief, and his heart dances with the daffodils. Next thing I will do is I will flash a question on this screen. I want you to go back and forth between the poetry and the question, the poetry and the question. Think about what the right answer is and put it in the comments. I will reply to you in the comments.